She brought my sister to his penthouse, looked at me and said, "Don't marry liability." What I didn't know, what I should have seen, is that this wasn't sudden. It was planned, long before that day. And by the time I realized the truth, they'd already sold the story that I was the problem. But if I was the problem, why were they the ones hiding everything? There's something strange about getting a text from your mother when you haven't heard from her in months, not even on your birthday. It was mid-morning in Miami, the kind of humid that sticks to your skin, and I was sitting at my desk sorting through transcripts from a troubled student who might not graduate. Just another day as a high school counselor, steady, quiet, thankless. When the message lit up my phone, I blinked. A single line. Dinner at 7, Penthouse on Brickell, Peyton's boyfriend's place. No greeting, no apology, just an address that screamed wealth I didn't have. I reread it 3 times. It felt calculated, like I was being summoned, not invited. And yet, curiosity gnawed at me. I hadn't seen Peyton in over a year. Last I heard, she was dating some finance guy from New York who just fell in love with Miami's sunshine. Classic. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the message like it might change if I waited long enough. But it didn't. So that night, I went. The penthouse was the kind of place that made you feel like you didn't belong the second the elevator doors opened. Marble floors that reflected the city lights like water. The scent of something floral and expensive. I couldn't name it, but it clung to the air like arrogance. Every inch of the place whispered, "You're not from here." Juliet, my mother, stood near the entrance in a tailored cream blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Sophia," she said, nodding once, lips tight. No hug, no warmth, just formal acknowledgement, like I was an old neighbor she ran into by chance. Then came Peyton. She glided into the room in heels I could never walk in, hair curled perfectly, skin glowing like she'd just stepped out of a spa. "Soph!" She smiled too wide. "So glad you could come." Her arms wrapped around me, but it felt rehearsed. Her perfume, something sharp and designer, lingered even after she pulled away. I gave her a smile, practiced and polite. "Thanks for the invite. Nice place." Edward appeared next, offering a drink like a man trained to impress. Tall, sharp-suited, controlled. He looked at me like I was a resume, scanning for weaknesses. I wondered if he'd rehearsed that handshake in a mirror. We sat down to dinner shortly after. It was all surface level, wine, laughter, little stories that meant nothing. Until Juliet, out of nowhere, put down her fork and said, "Don't marry a liability." The air froze. Peyton's hand paused mid-reach. Edward's jaw tightened. No one said a word. I looked at Juliet. Her face was unreadable. "Excuse me?" Edward asked, his voice too calm. She didn't repeat herself. Instead, she took a sip of wine. Some people carry too much baggage, and they expect others to pay the price for it. I stared at her, trying to understand who that was meant for. Him? Me? Peyton laughed awkwardly. "Mom." But Juliet kept going. "It's important to know who brings value and who drags everyone down." She looked at me then, not long, just enough, and I felt it, years of disappointment, of comparisons, all condensed into that look. I clenched my jaw, forced a smile. Some people just need the right support. Juliet shrugged. Or they never learn to stand on their own. I didn't respond. I couldn't, not without exploding. Instead, I focused on my glass, fingers tight around the stem. Dinner dragged on. Peyton tried to shift the topic, but she looked rattled. Edward, meanwhile, seemed amused, or maybe calculating. I couldn't tell, but I could feel the undercurrent, something unsaid, brewing beneath their polished facades. Later that night, I stood in the guest room, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired, older, like I'd been through something I couldn't name, and maybe I had. I leaned against the sink, took a slow breath, and closed my eyes. The weight in my chest was heavy, memories I didn't ask for flooding in. Peyton, crying when she broke Mom's vase, and me getting blamed because I was older. Juliet telling me to set an example. Always the bigger person, always the one who swallowed her pride. I opened my eyes and whispered, I'm done being silent. I meant it. I didn't sleep much. Around midnight, I heard muffled voices from down the hall. At first, I thought it was the TV, but the words were too sharp, too specific. He thinks he's controlling this, Juliet's voice said, low and cold. But he's not, Peyton replied, softer, worried. He's smarter than he looks, Mom. Juliet scoffed. He's a means to an end. Just remember the plan. I froze. My hand hovered over the doorknob. I knew I shouldn't listen, but I did, because something about it made my skin crawl. They weren't talking about dinner, or about me. They were talking about Edward. And maybe they weren't the ones being used. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. My mind raced, connecting dots I hadn't noticed before. That look Peyton gave Edward, Juliet's calculated insults, the penthouse, the show. They weren't just playing polite, they were playing a game, and I had just stepped onto the board. I whispered to myself, I wasn't supposed to hear that, but now that I did, they'll wish I hadn't. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, Juliet's voice came back to me. If he thinks he's using us, he's mistaken. I laid still, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. My mind kept circling back to that moment, trying to unpack every word, every glance, every pause in their voices. Something was off, beyond off. I wasn't just a guest here. I was a piece in a game I didn't even know I was playing. For years, I'd brushed off the coldness, the favoritism. Juliet always defended Peyton, always found a way to make me feel like I was somehow in the way. But now it wasn't just emotional distance, it was strategy. I thought of all the little things, how I was never asked to be involved, how decisions were made without me, conversations stopped when I walked into a room. All of it started to form a shape I hadn't dared see before. That morning, sunlight poured through the penthouse windows like it had no idea what was going on. Peyton sat alone at the breakfast bar, picking at a bowl of fruit. She didn't look up when I approached. I stood there for a beat, then said, "We need to talk." She blinked slowly. "About what?" "Don't play dumb. Last night, I heard you and Mom." She sighed like I'd just accused her of stealing a sweater. "Sophia, it's not what you think." I cut her off. "Then what is it? Why is Mom talking about using Edward? What do you two think you're doing? And why am I here, really?" Peyton finally met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw it. Something shaky behind her mask. She glanced around, voice dropping. She's trying to protect us. You wouldn't understand." "Try me." She stood, arms crossed, defensive. "You've always seen everything in black and white. It's not like that. There are things you don't know. About Mom. About the family." I stepped closer. "Then tell me." She shook her head, lips tight. "Don't push this. You wouldn't want to make things worse between us." There it was, a warning, maybe even a threat. But I didn't back down. I just nodded slowly and turned away. She didn't try to stop me. Later, after everyone had left, Peyton said she had yoga, Juliet vanished for one of her brunches. I stayed behind. I told the cleaning staff I'd be leaving shortly. Instead, I headed to Edward's study. It was pristine, not a single paper out of place, but something felt arranged, like it was meant to look untouched. I opened a drawer and found nothing but pens. The second drawer, bingo. A folder tucked beneath a stack of magazines, contracts, financial documents, names I recognized and some I didn't. Investments tied to real estate, trusts under my mother's name, and surprisingly, one under mine. I wasn't listed as a signer, just a variable. One document in particular made my stomach drop, a land transfer agreement contingent upon family signatures. Except it looked like mine had already been printed. Forged. My breath caught. I snapped photos of everything, hands shaking. My phone buzzed once. Low battery. I ignored it. Everything was clearer now. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. This was financial, legal. They were using me to secure assets, maybe to protect them, maybe to gain more. Either way, I wasn't meant to know. And suddenly, I wasn't just angry. I was determined. I grabbed my things and headed toward the door. Just as I was about to leave, my phone rang. Landon. I hesitated, then answered. "Hey." Soph, he said, voice tense. I've been trying to reach you since last night. I know. I've been busy. He paused. I don't like this. Something's off. I can feel it. I sank onto the edge of the couch. You're not wrong. You need to be careful, he said. These people, your mom, Peyton, they're not just playing family games. This feels bigger. I looked around the penthouse at all the things that sparkled too much. It is bigger. Whatever it is, I care about you, he said. But you're in the middle of something dark. Be smart, okay? His voice cracked just enough to make me close my eyes. Thanks for calling. I mean it. Call me if anything happens. I ended the call and sat there for a moment, just breathing, processing. Then I stood up and walked to the balcony. The city stretched out beneath me, too loud, too bright. I leaned on the railing, thinking about what came next. That's when my phone buzzed again. A message from Juliet. I'm sending someone to speak with you tomorrow. It's time to settle this, once and for all. My fingers clenched around the phone. My chest burned, not with fear, but with clarity. This wasn't going to end quietly. I would not be silenced again. Tomorrow, the truth would be laid bare. No more games. That morning, sunlight hit the penthouse windows hard, like it knew something was coming. I woke before dawn, heart still pounding from the revelations last night. Juliet had asked me to come. Alone. There was no Peyton. The silence between us felt thick when I arrived. Nothing in her expression made me believe she wasn't hiding something. I clenched my fists in the car, repeating to myself, I'm not backing down this time. Juliet was already there when I walked in. Her voice, polished and soft, tried to smooth over everything. Sophia, thanks for coming. But her eyes flicked away too fast. I sat across from her, waiting. She asked if I was still upset. I nodded. Why did you say what you said the other night? My voice didn't shake, but inside something cold snapped. She denied it, said I was too sensitive. You've always had it easy, she spat, and I felt that burning heat in my chest. The words hit like a shove. I'm done being your scapegoat. She paused, swallowing down something heavy. I could see guilt flicker before she covered it with composure. She looked out the window, then back. You don't know what I've carried. I don't need to know your burdens if you're going to offload them on me, I said. Silence. Then Juliet's admission came, reluctant as a confession. Everything had been for Peyton's future. I was the shadow, the one who was in the way. You're not the right choice, she said. That phrase cut across me. Not love, not value, just utility. My heart hammered as I stood, anger pooling. A pawn, I whispered. She didn't disagree, but her eyes glistened. Something like regret, fear. Then she dropped the twist I wasn't expecting. Edward, he hadn't been playing them blindly. He was using both my mother and sister to secure his own power. Juliet's voice shook. You think you're the only one being used? She said. He's been working us all along. My brain pushed back. This betrayal was deeper than I thought. Not just emotional, not just financial. It was deception woven through everything. You could control everything, she offered, voice low. Join us. You'll have your place. I laughed, harsh and hollow. I don't want a place in a house built on lies. The anger didn't feel liberating. It felt raw and necessary, because I realized I was stepping out of the shadows. It was late afternoon when I stepped onto the balcony. Humid wind tangled my hair, while the city below pulsed with unknowing life. My phone buzzed. Landon. I know you're in a tough spot, he said. I believe in you. Don't let them break you. His voice was calm, steady. What I needed. I closed my eyes, let his faith anchor me. I looked out at the skyline, Ariana's lights flickering as dusk began, thinking, they knew all along. They underestimated me. They thought I would stay silent. They thought I had no spine. But I do. They don't win by default, not this time. Chapter 4. The Shattering Truth. I woke up with tightness in my chest, sunlight already creeping between the blinds. The confrontation from yesterday still echoed every nerve. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped, trying to calm the churn in my stomach. All night I replayed Juliet's admission. The knowledge weighed heavier than any regret. I decided that today I would stop running. I pulled myself together. I drove by myself to Juliet and Peyton's house. No music, just the hum of the engine. My phone sat silent beside me until I parked. I stepped inside quietly. Peyton was there, doors and curtains drawn, as if hiding from daylight. Juliet's eyes flicked up when I entered, their expressions practiced, defensive. "How much longer are you going to treat me like a pawn?" I said, voice steady but sharp. Peyton stiffened. Juliet's lips pressed thin. "You've acted like I don't even exist when things get serious." Peyton opened her mouth, closed it. "Everything's been for the family's good," she said finally. "You don't understand our sacrifice." I looked at her, saw the tension, saw fear in her hands. Juliet tried to shift the blame. "You've always misunderstood me." But I raised the folder of documents. "Do you really think I'm that dumb?" I said. "I know everything now." Peyton gasped. Juliet swallowed. Peyton's face went pale. She shifted in her seat. "No," she stammered. This isn't how I wanted." Juliet cut in, her voice colder now. "Edward set this up. He made us believe it was for preservation, for protection." My heart stuttered. They never saw me. The family meeting turned into revelations. Juliet confessed Edward didn't just benefit from their actions. He orchestrated the lies, played both sides for advantage. He manipulated trust, manipulated fear. "You were just the means to his gain," Juliet said, voice raw. "The plan, financial ruin, the fear, it was his." I stared at her as if she'd betrayed me again, because she had, not only against me, but against herself. I felt betrayal twist in my gut, sharp and loud. I stood then, my palms flat on the table. "You think I'll stay quiet now that I know who's pulling the strings?" Peyton's eyes filled, but she tried to speak. Juliet remained silent, lips pressed. In that moment, I sensed the shift. Whatever power they thought they had was slipping. My chest ached, but I felt a surge, too. Betrayal turned into resolve. I was tired of being sidelined. They thought they could destroy me with lies. They thought they could dim me into playing the role they assigned. I left the penthouse in the evening air, the sky bruised orange. My phone buzzed. It was Landon. "This fight is bigger than we thought," he said. I paused, leaning against the car, his voice firm. "I'm with you, but be careful." I looked up at the city lights, the skyscrapers bending skyward. Edward's reach, bigger than I imagined, but so was my truth. I will not be their pawn. I will fight. The afternoon light filtered through my apartment window, drawing lines on the floor, reminding me how long I'd been waiting. I lay on the couch, clutching the folder of documents. Pages that once felt sharp, now felt like weights in my hand. My heart ached, not from loss, but from betrayal. Edward's smug face flashed behind my eyelids. Juliet's soft apologies, Peyton's forced smiles. Every moment made sense now. I stood up, paced, tried to calm the anxiety twisting in my chest. Tonight, I would face Edward. I would demand answers. I would no longer hide. Edward arrived at the penthouse just as the sun was dipping behind the skyline. He stepped through the door with smooth confidence, suit pressed, eyes fixed on me as though daring me to speak. He offered a drink, whiskey, neat, his voice polite. "Sophia, you're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, tone cool and measured. I accepted the drink, though it burned down my throat. "You've been manipulating me and my family for years," I said, voice low. "What is your endgame?" He smiled that practiced half-smile. "Endgame? You're assuming there's something darker than ambition." I bristled. The folder in my hand thudded against my thigh. He paused, momentarily shaken. He leaned forward. "You think you see all the strings?" His eyes glinted. "I don't just want control of wealth. I want security. Eliminating those who oppose me. That includes you." His admission landed like a punch. I felt the blood rush to my face. I remembered all the moments he had twisted truth, spun loyalty, used our family as his chessboard. I stood taller. You'd hurt me to protect your plans, even with my name on forged contracts? My voice cut through the part of him that tries to cloak cruelty in calm. He faltered a moment, trying to say it was for the future. For the future? I repeated, bitter. You destroyed our trust. He shifted. Edward tried to persuade me, to suggest I was reacting emotionally, that what he did was necessary. But I saw the cracks. The way he avoided my eyes, the way Juliet's name rolled off his tongue. Then came the twist I never saw coming. My mother, Juliet, had been part of his plan from the start. You think I didn't know? I said, voice shaking. Mom helped you manipulate all of us. He nodded, almost polite. Juliet was promised loyalty, support, rewards. She agreed to secure things you couldn't see. I gripped the drink until it threatened to shatter. The betrayal hit me like a blow. My throat tightened. I thought back to her soft speeches, her excuses. She was always advising trust, talking about sacrifice. Now I saw it was always sacrifice. For them, never for me. My hands shook. The room felt smaller. You broke everything, I said. Not just trust. My certainty, my peace. I realized that for the first time, I was free of their illusions. I could act. I wouldn't be silent. Evening bled into twilight. City lights flickered beyond glass. I steadied myself, gathering every piece of evidence, every truth I could use. I will expose you, Edward, I said quietly. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. No apologies, no softness, just resolve. I stepped back, shoulders squared. I saw Peyton's face in the reflection of the window, hurt, confusion, guilt. I saw Juliet's in Edward's eyes, smoke and promises gone cold. And I saw myself, someone who no longer doubts. I walked away from Edward, out onto the balcony where wind carried the scent of salt and possibility. My chest still burned, but my mind was clear. People used to assume I was meek, that I would listen, that I would fold. They'll know now that I'm done being silent. That evening, the sky was bruised with pinks and grays when I pulled into the driveway of the penthouse. My hands gripped the steering wheel for a second, reminding myself this was no longer just about their lies. It was about me. I checked the folder one more time. Financial statements, contracts, photos, all pieces in place. I slid out of the car, the air warm, almost sticky. I closed the door behind me and I walked up the steps, trying to steady my breathing because this was going to be the moment everything changed. Edward opened the door before I could knock. His expression polite, eyes sharp. Juliet followed, lips curved into a forced smile. They stood side by side, like a fortress, expecting me to falter. Sophia, Edward said, voice contrived, you must know you're pushing too far. I didn't flinch. I had rehearsed this, planned every word. The games are over, I said. I know everything. Juliet stiffened. Edward's false calm cracked for the first time. You're too emotional, Sophia. This is business, he said. I met his gaze. Business? I spat the word out. Is that what you call destroying my peace? Twisting trust? Lying to my face? He paused, then exhaled slowly. You always thought you were smart. But yes, there is a plan. One you never saw coming. His tone dropped. Controlling our wealth isn't enough. Everyone who opposes me has to be dealt with, including you. My heart stung at including you. He leaned forward. I've played the long game. Every sympathy you thought you had, orchestrated. Every moment you trusted someone, manipulated. The walls felt like they were closing in. Juliet's face turned pale beside him. She tried to speak, flinched. I held the folder up. I have your voice notes. The phone recordings. The contracts with my name forged, signed without me knowing. Her eyes widened. Edward's attempt at control failed. His voice trembled slightly, trying to cover. It was for protection. I laughed, bitter and low. Protection? You protected them from what? Truth? Juliet stammered something about sacrifice. Edward interrupted. Sacrifice is part of legacy. My jaw clenched. I don't want your legacy, I said, stepping forward. I just want the truth to matter. Juliet's voice shook. You think I didn't know this would hurt you? You think I never felt guilty? She looked at Edward, then at me. He promised me status, security. Promised that if I complied, the future would be safe. The words hit like a blow. My mother had always said she loved me. Now I saw those promises were conditional. Something broke inside me. Disappointment, sadness, rage, all tangled. I took a breath, my voice steady. You sold our past for his benefit. You treated me like someone expendable. Edward's mask slipped. He looked cornered. Juliet's eyes glistened. The hush in the room was loud. I realized I held the upper hand, not because I was angry, but because I was truthful. I laid out every piece of evidence. Lawsuits Edward didn't want anyone to see. Trusts Juliet thought no one noticed. Each is a thread in the web they spun. Edward tried to refute, said I misunderstood. Juliet defended him until her voice cracked. No more lies, I said. No more pretending. The lights outside dimmed as twilight fell. I stood with folder in hand, breathing steady, heart thudding loud in ears. I saw the faces of Peyton, Juliet, Edward, broken facades, and I saw myself, no longer quiet, no longer afraid. I don't need either of you, or your games, I said. I'll take back what's mine without your betrayal, without hiding in silence. They were speechless. I turned and walked toward the balcony. Wind lifted my hair. I stared at Miami's skyline, at lights that nearly reached the ocean. My chest burned, but this time the fire was mine. I didn't need them to believe me. I believed myself. That night, the air felt heavier. I sat at my kitchen table, the lights of Miami drifting in through the windows. My fingers traced the edge of the folder I'd carried for days. Everything felt both fragile and inevitable. I thought of how far I'd come, from the quiet girl who stayed in the background to the one who demanded truth. I had the evidence. I had the voice. Still, I sensed retaliation was coming. I stood, stretched, walked to the mirror. I saw someone determined. No more half-truths, no more silence. I whispered to my reflection, "This is it. There's no going back now. They'll know who I am." It started quietly. Edward's smears on social media, accusations that I was unstable, unhinged. Juliet gave interviews to friends, twisting stories I believed were private. I watched notifications light up my phone, messages, tags, whispers. My mother called, voice low, trembling. "You've embarrassed the family enough. You don't know what you're doing." The shame in her tone hurt more than anger, but I held the line. "This is the truth," I said. "I will not be silenced anymore." Peyton tried to reach out, text messages, calls. Juliet offered peace talks in hushed tones, but I could feel the trap in every word. And then Juliet revealed something I never imagined. She'd been feeding my mother lies, false rumors, manipulated facts, painting me as the villain. She had orchestrated a family rift, believing Edward's promises of loyalty and reward. That realization broke something soft inside me. My mother, the woman I thought would be my anchor, was drifting away. "I've been a fool," I said into the silence of my apartment. I thought of every time she judged me, every time I was told I wasn't enough. It all made sense now. I shut the blinds, isolated myself for a while, and I made a decision. I'll expose everyone, even if I lose everything, even if the world believes the lies. I arranged a public statement. Press conference details floated through my mind, what I would say, what evidence I'd present. But just before the time came, my screen lit up with something horrifying. Someone had leaked altered documents, fake emails, doctored photos, whispers of mental instability. The hacker's signature anonymous, my credibility under attack. The press conference ruined before it could begin. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, tears tasting bitter on my tongue. I felt rage, humiliation, disbelief. But under that, something steadied within me. I wouldn't collapse. I couldn't. They thought they could break me by making me the villain. They thought I would crumble in shame. But I'll go down swinging. I gathered all my proofs again. Photos unaltered, time-stamped voice notes, registration documents, contracts with signatures I had never given. I organized them, prepared them for posting, for showing. Social media, witnesses, legal paths, all in motion. And in the quiet of the night, I breathed deeply, listening to the hum of the city outside. I pictured faces, Edward, Peyton, Juliet, and I saw fear in them. I saw exposure. They underestimated me. They thought I would shut up. They were wrong. I woke up earlier than usual, the room still dark, soft light creeping under the curtains. For a moment, I allowed myself a breath, knowing this was the day everything could break in favor of truth. Outside, the street was quiet, cars distant. I double-checked my phone messages, the evidence folder beside me, every piece in order. The betrayal, the manipulation, the lies, they had all led here. I thought, I've come this far, and there's no turning back now. I moved with purpose, reached out to someone I trusted, someone quietly watching. The truth will come out. It's just a matter of how much they'll want to hide, I told them. I steadied myself. If they thought I would flinch, they were wrong. No more hiding. No more doubts. I was ready to expose Edward and Juliet no matter the cost. I uploaded everything. Social media lit up in real time. The statements, the voice recordings, the contracts, the proof of forged signatures. I typed out the public statement, every detail of Edward's corruption, Juliet's complicity. My hands shook at first, knuckles white, but I kept going. Then I received a call from someone in government, low voice, steady. Years of evidence they had quietly collected against Edward. This was not expected. It was leverage, a way to shift the legal scale in my favor. As the posts spread, more voices rose. Witnesses, old associates of Edward reaching out, confirming decay behind the polished facade. Edward and Juliet scrambled, insults and justifications followed, but their words landed hollow. The public was listening. I watched article after article, share after share. My phone never stopped buzzing. Reporters, lawyers, people who said, "I hear you, I believe you." Juliet called me in desperation. "You've ruined everything," she hissed through the line. "Why can't you just leave us alone?" Her voice cracked, sounding less sure than I ever heard it. I didn't falter. "This isn't about revenge, Juliet. It's about justice. Something you'll never understand." She tried to offer money, power, silence in exchange for my consent. I told her no. I exposed her fatal mistake. When she revealed a piece of information she thought no one knew, something worse than I had uncovered, something linking her directly to manipulation, financial deceit, trust betrayals. Her own words became proof against her. The tide turned. I stood firm, publicly denouncing her with clarity, legal support, credibility intact. Courts, media, law enforcement all moved in. Evidence I submitted was verified. Public opinion shifted. Juliet's fate sealed by what she'd unwittingly confessed. Edward found himself exposed, agents asking questions he couldn't evade. It was messy, it was painful, but it was real. After the storm, I stood in my living room, afternoon light filling the windows. I watched the news, Edward and Juliet's names, charges pressed, statements read. I saw people hurt by them find solace in the exposure. A sense of relief washed through me. My reputation, once smeared, was restoring itself. I felt dignity returning. I didn't celebrate, not yet. But I allowed myself hope. I allowed myself the belief that what was broken could be mended. I thought of Landon, of people I love who believed me even when I doubted. I thought of tomorrow. It's over now, but I'll never forget what it took to get here. It was a cool, overcast morning in New York. I sat alone at a small cafe on the Upper West Side, tucked into the corner by the window. Just me, a black coffee, and silence. Something I hadn't had in a long time. A year had passed since I stood toe-to-toe with Edward and Juliet. Courtrooms, news cycles, all of it had faded now. I had started over. New apartment, new city, new life. But scars don't care about distance. They follow you. I used to wake up bracing for the next blow. Now I wake up wondering who I am when no one's trying to break me. I've lost a lot, I whispered into the rim of my cup. But I've gained more. I wasn't chasing justice anymore. I had it. What I was looking for now was peace. Then I saw her, my mother. She stood outside the cafe window like she wasn't sure if she had the right to come in. Her eyes were tired, older than I remembered. She stepped inside slowly, as if testing the floor beneath her feet. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," she said, standing beside my table. I nodded toward the empty chair. She sat down, carefully, like every movement might shatter what was left between us. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "Not just for not believing you, for not protecting you when it mattered." I didn't say anything right away. I stared at her hands, folded, nervous. "I thought I was protecting the family," she went on. "But maybe I was just protecting myself." I swallowed. My throat felt tight. "I didn't need you to fix it. I just needed you to see me." She reached out, then pulled her hand back. "I see you now." That hit harder than I expected. We talked about the past, about the silence that built walls between us, about the ways we both hurt each other, even when we thought we were doing the right thing. She apologized, and I forgave her, not because it erased anything, but because forgiveness was no longer a gift I gave her. It was one I gave myself. That afternoon, I walked her to the subway. We hugged. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't neat. But it was real. When I got back home, there was a letter waiting for me. No name on the envelope, but I knew the handwriting. Edward. I stood there, unsure if I even wanted to open it. Eventually, I did. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs. He said he had been trying to rebuild his life, that he finally saw the damage he'd caused, that he didn't expect reconciliation, just acknowledgement, regret. He asked for forgiveness. I sat with it for a long time. There was no manipulation in his words, no excuses, just a broken man owning the wreckage he'd left behind. I didn't write him back, but I closed the letter gently, and I didn't throw it away. Maybe forgiveness didn't always need to be spoken. Maybe sometimes it was in the way you stop carrying someone in your heart like a wound. Weeks passed. I started a project I'd been dreaming about for years. Speaking engagements, community events, workshops, not just about survival, but about reclaiming identity. "I've found my voice," I told a small audience at a community center one evening, "and now it's time to let it be heard." After the talk, a woman came up to me. She'd been through something similar. She just said, "Thank you. I didn't think anyone understood." I did. I really did. That night, I walked home through quiet streets, the city lights blurred through soft rain, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running from something. But there's one more thing I need to do before I can fully move on.